Great. That was a sudden stop. I did, Bryce, when I'm doing that music, you gotta like fade the music away here.
Fade it out.
You gotta
Hey, man,
fade it out here. Just
Hey, I'm just keeping us on track. That's my job here.
okay.
Gosh.
You're doing
Always
great.
ruining our fun.
That's right.
All right. Everyone sees the slides, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. It's always a great thing to just check in on. All right. Well, we got some wins out of the way. Here's just a beautiful team of people. But oh wait, did we officially get into wins yet, or was that it?
Not yet.
Okay, I thought we got a little bit of wins, early wins. So guys, what wins are we having this week? Let's hear it. As you're thinking about it, I have a win for you. Just talked to Surface Renew here earlier today, and their refinishing side of the business, the tub refinishing side of the business, year to date already has a 72% increase over last year. That's pretty good.
Wow.
One of their best weeks ever just happened on top of a continual increase. And yeah, they're starting to build up a real good team, and that's a huge win, 72% increase. Anyone can top that, or yeah, go on.
I got a small win.
Yes.
Got a call last week to look at, guy called me about moving a gutter, said it's eating up the concrete. And when I get there, it's actually a new built retirement condo thing about a mile from here. So I gave him the quote. Tuesday he called me, said it's a go, and wanted to know if I would sign up to be their vendor for all their siding, roofing,
Wow.
and soffit and gutters. So hopefully it turns out good.
Wow,
Nice.
that's huge. Come on, Gary. Anybody else? Anyone got other wins here?
I know I'm gonna speak for Austin over here with Quantum Contracting, because I just got off the phone with them and they got their first website lead.
Oh, good.
Shoot.
Let's go.
Yep.
That's
And
always
website
exciting.
Yep, website just went up a couple weeks ago, got their first lead, and they are working the sales system like crazy. They're giving out all of the estimates, they're following the process, and they are just crushing it.
Nice.
Come on. All right. Well, if anyone else has some wins, either mention it in your breakout room or interrupt me right now. Okay, let's get after this.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt you just real quick.
Yes.
He did it.
We Hey, what's up, Brian?
Hey, Joey.
we finally came on board with Bryce, and we went to we're actually now a Google guarantee, and
Right.
we are live with that, and so far our phone has been blowing up for the past 2 days.
Let's
And
go.
currently, right now, we've probably made enough already this week, probably to pay for our Google budget, probably for the next 4 months. So we're pretty excited about that, and we started looking for people to hire today.
Let's
my.
That's a
go.
happy problem.
We'll wait a little bit before we start doing the hire, but it's got us pretty excited. So
Yes, sir.
it's a win for
Love
us.
to hear that. That's a new win for me. I didn't even know this beforehand. Love that.
I think it was Joey's intention to make sure he was the
Surprise,
last one.
Bryce.
That's right. That's right.
Wow, love it. That's huge. All right, anybody else? You can interrupt me, or I may interrupt you back here. That's huge. Way to go. All right, guys, we're going to talk about firing, not just firing employees, but when, how. Last time we talked about this was, honestly, it was over 7 months ago. So a lot of crap probably happened between now and then. And this is just always a good thing to keep it top of mind. If you heard this before, and if you haven't, get ready, start, don't text anybody during this call and say you're fired. That's not the right way to do it. But just hold on a little bit. We're going to talk about this. Okay, so when it comes to building your team here, building your business. It's about building your team. What do I mean by that? You know, no one builds a great business without a great team in place. You know, I don't know if any of you play chess here. I'm chess today because I lost to several times to one of the best chess players in this office, but we don't need to talk about that.
Well, Caden, if you guys see a guy labeled Caden who's smirking on this call, that's who Jonathan was losing to. He's got a pretty
Yeah.
big smirk on right now.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. But you know, and as it relates to chess here, you know, a king is useless without the pawns, even though it's all about the kings. You know, without the pawns in play here, you're out of the game. You've got to have your pawns. So no one builds a great business without building a great team around you. And so your role in your business as a leader is to do three main things: attract the right people, develop them, but thirdly here, it's also your job to get rid of the people who are not a good fit. You have to get rid of them. Sometimes when you attract the right people, they may turn bitter, or maybe you thought they were the right person, but it turns out they're not. You just got to continue to hire and fire. So it's just as important to fire the right people than it is to hire the right people. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I want to kind of hear from you guys a little bit. Just let's unmute. Let's get after this. So start thinking about this. But what has caused you, before I list off reasons that I've personally encountered with my clients, like, let's hear from a few of you. What are reasons you've delayed firing an employee or delayed having that conversation, or what are reasons that you may have caught yourself just wanting to put it off a little bit longer? Let's hear it.
No, I'll take that one in right out of the gate, no problem. We have deadlines, you have commitments, you're halfway through the project, and you know right away that person's got to go, and then you don't want to cut them loose to that. Well, okay, I'll cut them at the end of the project, or we won't do any more work with them, something like that. We have learned over the years, this whole meeting is an easy one for us. The sharp knife cuts the quickest. Bag them, get them out of your life. It's not worth the trouble. So, okay, meeting adjourned.
I love it. Hey, we'll talk next week. Sounds good.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Anybody else have moments that they can relate to? Yeah, I've definitely delayed, and maybe should have fired someone when I didn't back in yesterday or 6 months ago or 3 years ago. Anybody else have something to say on that?
I can tell you my experience. When I purchased the San Ramo, the current location that I have, I inherited all the employees with it, and I can tell you it has been extreme. It was extremely difficult at the time, and so I knew some employees. So one employee was coming intoxicated to work like daily. The second employee constantly argumentative, and those are basically the backbone of the company. And how do you fire those people, especially if I'm new to that industry and I don't know anything about it and trying to learn and manage the company? It was very difficult. But at one point, it got to a level where I couldn't stand it anymore. And I was talking to people, and they were telling me, yeah, you got to fire him, but I've never fired anyone before, and I don't know how to approach it. So I set up a camera in one of the offices, and I called him in one day. But before that, I found somebody else for the position that was actually starting 2 days after that. And I fired him, and I was not expecting an easy conversation. So he was yelling and screaming, and at one point I was thinking, I don't know what is he going to do? I mean, I have a family here. I mean, should I buy a gun? I mean, I don't have one at home, but I have no idea. It was rough. So this guy went. And then the second guy that was coming intoxicated to work, he was with the company for about 20 years. So I told him, you know what, you come to work, you work, I know you have some problems, but you're safe. And the new manager starts, and I was walking him around the back of the company, and I was wanting to show him one of the projects that we're working on, and it was, we printed large murals for a trade show company, and something worth a few $1,000s, like $3,000 or $4,000. And I'm going around the back, and I cannot see anywhere the vinyl. I mean, it was gone. So I pulled up my camera, my phone, and I rewind the cameras, and I see that employee that I left, that was, you know, a buddy to the one that got fired, taking the vinyl out of the back door. And at that point, I started asking questions. So he started like, "Oh, I have a stomachache today, and I'm not coming to work." And I was ready. I wanted to face him, you know, and ask him what's going on. And he was making excuses. And at one point, he's like, and I told him, "If you're coming back to work, bring me a doctor's note." So he told me that he's going to sue me. And I told him, "Well, just go ahead and just sue me if you think that you have grounds for a lawsuit. I have you on camera stealing stuff from the store." And I fired him, actually, unfortunately, via text message. I told him, "Don't come to work anymore." But it was a I don't know, extremely unpleasant experience for me.
Wow.
Yeah,
I-
that's terrible. And all of that delay, just the problem gets worse. And I'm sure a lot of the
Yeah.
people here can resonate with a lot of that stuff. The more you delay and put it off, just like Mark talked about, the more that bigger issues or small issues become bigger and bigger issues. One of the things that we talk about for us as coaches here and advisors and working with people on this is the very first thing for us in our training document is, if a business owner believes that they need to get rid of someone, most likely they need to get rid of that person. It's not up to
Absolutely.
us to
Actually,
determine.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard that so many times, but it's so difficult when it's your first time, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
That-
after the 5th time, I got numb to it. So I just I told him it's not working out, and that's it.
That's right. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's huge. Bottom line, it's never easy. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're talking through it. Here's some of the reasons that I've personally encountered with my clients and just different people, why someone may delay firing. Well, first off, confrontation is simply uncomfortable. You know, very few people actually enjoy the confrontation. They would rather, you know, tolerate a bad employee rather than confront them until the scales tip so far back the other direction, you finally realize, I should have had that conversation a long time ago. Next thing is, you know, you don't have someone lined up to replace them. You know, I see Mark's nodding there. He's like, yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. You know, or worse, if you fire this position, it's going to be too difficult to run the business. You know, you have to personally fill in for them, and that's never a position you want to be in. You know, another one is, you know, their skills. It makes them indispensable. You know, kind of similar here. You know, many times you find this isn't actually true. You can still fire them and operate fine without them. I'm not telling you 100% of the time, but most of the time I find that we enlarge the issue more than it actually is. We give it a much bigger size than it really deserves to get. And if this is actually true, well, then start training someone else in this role immediately, like yesterday. Next thing, you're hoping that one day they'll just get better. You know, they're not awful, but they're not good enough, but hoping one day that this will get better. You know, this is especially true if someone is, you know, is a nice person. It's easy to hope they're going to get better. Sometimes it's easy to blame yourself. You know, hey, maybe this is not working out because I didn't equip them well enough. And there are times, well, maybe that might be the case, but don't stay there forever. There's a time where you have to really assess objectively, is this person needing to just be gone because they're never going to fix themselves. There's no training that will ever be enough. They're just not coachable, whatever it might be. Last one is you feel like you haven't given them a chance. And that's why you'll need a write-up system. That's why you need to have those conversations. That's why you want to set expectations early. We're going to talk about all this. And these things, you know, you have to have documented violations, discussions, and expectations with each employee. And trust me, they will know Sometimes you fire someone, I hear this a lot, they almost wonder why you haven't fired them earlier. Like, well, I was expecting that for a few months, wondered why it took you so long. I hear that sometimes as well. So here's a real good quote, just kind of top this off with confrontations. I like to bring this up a lot, so you're probably tired of this quote. But it's, a person's success in life can usually be determined by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. So not being afraid to have that conversation, addressing it immediately, this will make your life more successful. I promise that, and especially your business. One more quote back to back here. Something that's super important. Elon Musk, he says, one lesson I learned at PayPal is to fire people faster. That sounds awful, but I think if someone's not working out, it's best to just part ways sooner rather than later. It's a mistake to try too hard to make something really work that couldn't work. All right. Why should you fire bad employees? I hate to use the word bad employees, but I did it. It's too late. Why should you fire employees who are not a good fit? Let's say that. You know, sometimes bad is a strong word. They're destroying morale. Hardworking and motivated employees like working with other hardworking and motivated employees. Who can attest to that? Bryce, do you like working with me? You know, probably not, because he does a great job and I don't. I was hoping he's going to interrupt me and say, no, you do a good job, but now I'm really questioning that. So
No, Jonathan, you make a difference. You deserve that award.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, here's another thing. They're hindering performance. They're costing you money. You know, mistakes that they can't be making anymore. You know, those cost you lots of money. You know, a poor conversion rate or missing out on too many opportunities, like a salesperson. Those opportunities that we're not capitalizing on are costing you money. When they're hitting under their required revenue, minimal required revenue amount per week, turns out it's called a minimal amount because you're losing money when you get below this amount. It's costing you to run the van, the truck, the equipment, the payroll, and they're not even bringing enough money to make up for that. The insurance, everything. Next thing is why you should fire quote unquote bad employees is a massive weight will lift off your shoulders. You're going to love it. It's going to feel so good. You know, it's a feeling of freedom, but it takes courage to get there.
A way that I've heard this put that I think is really good too is when we delay, or ultimately usually not just delay, but completely avoid confrontation or discipline, that's actually not caring for someone. You know, the idea is when we try to be fair or cared for somebody, you end up not caring or being fair to yourself as the business owner. If you always rescue someone, they're always going to expect to be rescued. The problem's never going to fix itself until a change is made. You have to make that stumbling block to get out of the rhythm or the routine of just cycling back around and around again. So it's actually not loving or not caring to discipline when needed.
Preacher Bryce, that was good. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so when and how to fire an employee. This is not the thorough, exhaustive list. If it doesn't fit within one of these categories, then you should keep them forever. No, but just here are a few principles and guidelines as it relates to just when you should think about firing someone and how you should go about doing so. General rule, just like Bryce mentioned earlier, you feel you should let someone go, the person probably needs to be let go. If you feel there's a reason, if it's a lingering reason, because people tend to put it off more than jump the gun. So that's a good rule to keep in mind. Number one here, it shouldn't be a surprise to the person, the employee here, when you fired them, you know, meaning they're expecting it because you've already had multiple conversations and write-ups. You've already told them, hey, if you come to late and come to work intoxicated again or ever, This is going to be a fireable offense immediately. They know that. They've signed the write-up document. You know, if you're firing them and it's a major surprise to them, then maybe there were a number of conversations that you avoided. Maybe there was conversations that needed to take place. So it shouldn't be a surprise to them. Next thing, you know, address concerns candidly and promptly with the employee. Doing something they shouldn't be doing. Don't wait 48 hours to address it. Don't wait for the perfect time to finally tell them, I should tell Joe about that thing he did 3 weeks ago. It's like the weight of your confrontation has dropped considerably. If it takes you 3 weeks to address a concern, then that was 3 weeks you tolerated that concern. That will hurt your culture of the company. It will hurt productivity. It's going to hurt morale because you're letting other people get away with things and other people are seeing that. Next thing here, use a write-up system. So what does that mean? You know, you have a list of infractions, list of fireable offenses. Hey, you do this one time, you're done. Don't even think about it. You can think about it, but just don't do it, I guess. Document the write-up. So this sets expectations and standards, your standards, right off the bat. New hire, check this write-up document that we have and sign off. And now you know how our system works, and we have documentation of that. You know, and we have a write-up system you can use. If you want it, please ask your coach. We're going to send it to you. It's a template. You may have to make some adjustments on there. Here's the next principle: fire when it's convenient for you. You're under no obligation to fire someone on the spot, even though it is kind of nice. When you're kind of on a power trip, it feels good. But don't do it unless there's a good reason for it. You know, there are times it's okay to mentally fire someone and then create a plan to train someone else or hire a replacement. You know, like an office admin. You're like, shoot, that's the 6th time that person has made this mistake. I've already had multiple documented conversations. This is just done. Let's look for someone to replace this person before firing them. Don't fire them and suddenly realize you have to answer all the phone calls and do all the paperwork that you don't have time to do. So fire when it's convenient for you as much as possible.
Now, this is different than being held hostage. We don't want you to be held hostage by a toxic employee. What I mean when I say that is a lot of times I'll have clients who will not want to let somebody go just because they're so busy. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to tackle it. And kind of like the examples I've been given, the longer that you let it fester, that one bad apple can really be affecting the whole bunch. It can be affecting the whole team culture. It could be putting bad seeds in other people. And so there's never going to be a perfect time to let somebody go. There might be a better time, you know, like prepare if you can tolerate them for a couple of days till you get somebody else hired or get a system put around it. But don't let yourself be held hostage in a situation where you're holding up onto somebody just because you think you're too busy to try to find somebody else. You know, don't get into that negative cycle.
Yeah, well, very well said. I'm like, fire them now and fire when it's easy, right? No, there is a gray area here, but there are times where maybe this isn't an employee completely ruining your culture, but just weigh those out for sure. Thank you. All right, next thing here, and really last point is fire when someone isn't performing to minimal standards. Sometimes I ask a client, hey, how much, you know, in the case of a plumber, let's say, how much money is the minimum amount, revenue, the minimum amount they should be bringing in each week? It's like, oh, shoot. Well, I guess maybe this amount. It's like, you could tell they've never really thought about it before. If you don't know what that number is, they don't know what that number is. So first off, let's make sure that's very clear. You know, we can have goals, certain amounts, you know, high standards or awards and just moments. Hey, you hit the big goal, you know, but we've got to have a minimum amount. There's got to be, you know, make sure that if the technician isn't performing well enough, that's going to be hurting the business in several ways. You know, they're filling in a spot that another could fill. someone who's going to be much more profitable, they're using another truck someone else could use. Sometimes you're like, well, they're not hurting the business. Well, if it's preventing you from bringing someone else in because you don't have an extra truck, then yes, it's really hurting you on top of the loss of profit. If the minimum is to bring in 5,000 a week, but they consistently hit 3,000 a week, chances are they're costing this company a lot of. And so, I'm not saying don't train your employees and give them pointers and help build the team, but someone who should know and has had all the training they need. This is a real issue. Let's make sure we're documenting this. So with consistent tracking of KPIs, whatever those KPIs might be for you, for an office or a marketing person, outbound calls, are they tracking that? How many are we doing? Revenue per week, whatever those KPIs might be. You always want to make sure you're tracking those and reviewing with your team, and then you personally reviewing them so that you can make factual decisions and not emotional decisions when it comes to letting somebody go. If someone's consistently below KPIs, below the mark, there comes a time where we're just going to have that conversation and have to, let them go. So,
and something I'll interject with here is the tracking of these things are to make the decision for you unemotional, to make it a matter of a system with the write-up policy, with the KPIs and things like that. You can't argue with yourself whenever you're looking at the numbers. Now, as far as the actual act of hiring somebody, or sorry, opposite of firing someone, just making sure you're paying attention, of firing somebody, the less you get into the weeds of the details, the better for you and for them. Because there's less to argue and negotiate and say, well, this week this happened. And the reason my numbers weren't there this week is because XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Just being like a broken record and saying, hey, it's not working out. We're going to have to let you go. And because you've documented and addressed it in the moment, it's not a surprise to them. But we wouldn't recommend that you go into all of these details in the activity of firing someone, just like Yav did in his example.
Also,
I
I'm
have a
gonna-
question.
Oh, go ahead.
So is there anything that we, from a legal standpoint, should be aware of when we're firing an employee? So I was told to have an attorney in the room or attorney on the phone or somebody present other than me as a witness when I'm firing somebody. So is there anything, to your knowledge, that I need to be aware of when I'm firing somebody?
Yeah, that's going to be so different per state. That's really hard to do like a blanket cover. And so I would recommend talking to like an HR specialist who knows the rules specifically to your state. I do not believe that you need to have a lawyer present or even on the phone. Having a witness is always good. Having documentation is huge. Simply having documentation is for a lot of states the main thing that you need to never get in trouble. Documentation meaning like you have write-ups from them that they've been aware of that document why you're firing them. They were late, here's the date, they were aware of it, they signed it, we kept it in their employee file. If you have that documentation, that's the main thing you need. But if you really want to get into the legalities and nitty-gritty, I would definitely talk to an expert who knows the actual laws in your state specifically, because each state's going to be very different.
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
And one thing I wanted to mention with what Rudy's saying about firing somebody when they aren't performing to your minimum standards. You got to make sure they know the minimum standards. We talked about tracking and KPIs last week. Most people will rise to the occasion, but they have to know the bar. They have to know what they're trying to hit. And so you are not allowing them to even, you're not doing your job as the business owner to really equip them and empower them if you're not making them aware of the goals that they need to be hitting, and if you're not on a weekly basis reviewing those with them and holding them accountable to it.
You just stole my closing statement, but
Damn
I
it,
guess.
sorry, Rudy.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the last thing I was going to say was pretty much just that. It's just, meeting with the team and reviewing KPIs methodically and tracking that methodically and talking about these goals with your team is essential to building a great team and letting go of people when they just can't perform. And so fire away with the breakout rooms.
Oh.
Don't just go.
Good
Yeah,
You were waiting to
coordination.
say that the whole call, weren't you, Rudy? You were just waiting to
No,
say that.
honestly, I
Absolutely
wasn't. It
was.
it just came up to me.
Came
and
up.
that's-
You're just that witty.
I suppose.
Okay, you should have something on your screen. If you don't, let me know and I'll get you taken care of.
If you haven't been in a breakout room before, we're going to talk about questions about firing, talk about the topic, and have great deep conversation.